The bank teller's hands stopped moving on the keyboard. She looked at her screen, then at me, then back at the screen. Her face had gone pale. "Sir," she said, her voice barely above a whisper, "I need to get my manager." I sat there in the plastic chair, holding my grandfather's worn passbook in my hands, the same passbook my father had ripped away from me 5 years ago at my wedding, the same passbook everyone had laughed at, the same passbook I had kept in my nightstand drawer for half a decade because I could not bring myself to throw away the last gift my grandfather ever gave me. "Is something wrong?" I asked. "No, sir. Nothing is wrong. I need to get my manager. Please wait here." She practically ran to the back of the bank. I looked down at the passbook again. It was old, yellowed, the cover worn soft from decades of handling. First Cleveland Savings and Loan was printed on the front in faded blue letters, a bank that had not existed under that name since 1987. Inside, the first entry was dated March 15, 1971. A deposit of $8,000. My grandfather's handwriting, neat and careful, in the space where customers used to record their own transactions. My father had said this passbook was worthless. My mother had said I should not embarrass myself. My brother had laughed and said there were probably 50 cents in the account, if the account even still existed. But I had come anyway, because my grandfather had asked me to, because 12 years of Sunday visits had taught me to trust him. Because the look in his eyes when he handed me this passbook at my wedding was not the look of a senile old man. It was the look of someone giving away something precious. I should have come sooner, but life gets in the way, and doubt creeps in, and when everyone you know tells you something is worthless, you start to believe them. I wish I had not believed them. The manager appeared from the back, a middle-aged woman in a gray suit with a name tag that said, Patricia Holloway, branch manager. She was followed by another man, older, wearing a more expensive suit. He had the look of someone who had been interrupted from something important. "Mr. Mercer?" Patricia asked, approaching my chair. "I am Patricia Holloway. This is David Chun, our regional director. He happened to be visiting our branch today. Is there a problem with the account?" Patricia and David exchanged a look. Then David pulled up a chair and sat down across from me. "Mr. Mercer, there is no problem. Quite the opposite, actually." He glanced at the passbook in my hands. "That account has been active since 1971. It was opened at First Cleveland Savings and Loan, which was acquired by Ohio National in 1987, which was then acquired by United Midwest in 2003, which was then acquired by us, National Ohio Bank, in 2015. Through all those acquisitions, the account remained active." "Active?" My father said it would have been closed decades ago. "Normally, yes. Dormant accounts are typically closed after a certain period of inactivity. But this account was never dormant." David paused. "Mr. Mercer, your grandfather made a deposit every single month for 52 years. $200 a month, without fail, from March 1971 until February of this year." I stared at him. "That is not possible. My grandfather was broke. He lived in a tiny house. He drove a truck from 1987. He wore the same clothes for 30 years. I cannot speak to his lifestyle choices. I can only tell you what the records show." David leaned forward. "Mr. Mercer, perhaps you should come to my office. This is a conversation that requires some privacy." I followed them to a corner office with glass walls and a view of the Cleveland skyline. Patricia closed the door behind us. David sat behind the desk and typed something into his computer. "The initial deposit in March 1971 was $8,000, he said, reading from the screen. "Quite a large sum for that time. Your grandfather then established an automatic transfer of $200 per month from a checking account at the same institution. That transfer continued uninterrupted for 52 years. 52 years of $200 a month," I said, doing the math in my head. "That is about $125,000. In deposits, yes, but this was a high-yield savings account with compound interest. And in 1985, your grandfather converted a portion of the funds into certificates of deposit, which were then rolled over repeatedly at favorable rates. In 1992, he also purchased dividend reinvesting shares in several blue-chip stocks through our investment arm. My grandfather did all that? He barely finished high school. Someone did it. The records show the decisions were made in person, at this branch with proper identification. David turned the monitor so I could see it. Mr. Mercer, the current balance of the account, including all associated investment holdings, is $3,412,647.31. The room tilted. I grabbed the arm of my chair. That is not possible, I heard myself say. That is not. My grandfather was poor. Everyone knew he was poor. He lived like he did not have 2 pennies to rub together. The account says otherwise. David's voice was gentle. Mr. Mercer, are you all right? Can I get you some water? $3 million. My grandfather had $3 million. 3.4 million, yes. And according to the beneficiary designation on file, updated in 2019, it all belongs to you. I did not remember leaving the bank. I did not remember driving home. I just remember sitting in my truck in the driveway, staring at the passbook in my hands, trying to understand how the man everyone had dismissed as a poor, senile old fool had quietly accumulated a fortune and left it all to me. I should have seen it coming. 12 years of signs, all pointing to this exact moment. My grandfather, Chester Raymond Mercer, was born in 1940 in a small town outside Cleveland. He grew up poor, genuinely poor, the kind of poor where you split a single egg among 3 children for breakfast. His father worked in a steel mill until the work destroyed his lungs. His mother took in laundry until her hands were raw and cracked. They never had anything, and Chester grew up believing that was just how life worked for people like them. He got a job at the same steel mill when he was 17, lying about his age to get hired. He met my grandmother, Rose, at a church picnic when he was 22. They married 6 months later, moved into a tiny house on the east side of Cleveland, and started the life that everyone in my family would eventually look down on. They never had much, or at least that is what everyone thought. Chester worked at the mill for 43 years, never missing a day, never complaining, never asking for more than he was given. Rose worked as a seamstress, then as a school cafeteria worker, then as a cleaning lady, always contributing, always saving, always making do with less.
They had one son, my father Gordon, who grew up embarrassed by his parents' modest life and determined to escape it. He went to college on scholarships and loans, got a business degree, climbed the corporate ladder at a manufacturing company, and eventually became a regional manager with a nice house in the suburbs and a wife who had never known poverty. Gordon rarely visited his parents. He was too busy, he said, too important. He had meetings and golf games and social obligations that could not be rescheduled for Sunday dinner with his father. But he always had time to remind everyone how far he had come, how much better he had done than his parents, how the Mercer name finally meant something, thanks to him. My mother, Lorraine, was cut from the same cloth. She came from a middle-class family that considered itself upper class, and she spent her life trying to climb higher. She tolerated Chester and rose the way you tolerate an embarrassing relative at holidays, with forced smiles and quick exits. My brother Preston was the golden child, 3 years older than me, smarter, more ambitious, more everything. He became a financial consultant, married a woman from a wealthy family, and moved to a house in the suburbs that was even bigger than our parents' house. He had 2 children who attended private schools and took tennis lessons and had never met their great-grandfather more than a handful of times. My sister Bridget was the middle child who desperately wanted to be the golden child. She married a dentist, had 3 children, and spent her life trying to keep up with Preston while looking down on everyone below her on the ladder she was climbing. And then there was me, Declan Patrick Mercer, the youngest, the disappointment, the one who became an electrician instead of a business executive, who married a woman from a working-class family, who lived in a modest house and drove a used truck and never seemed to understand that the whole point of being a Mercer was to be better than where you came from. I was the only one who visited Grandpa Chester. It started when I was 21, Just after I finished my apprenticeship and got my first real job, I was driving past his neighborhood on my way home from a job site, and I thought, why not? I had not seen him in months. It would only take a few minutes. Those few minutes turned into 3 hours. Grandpa Chester and I sat on his porch, drinking lemonade, talking about everything and nothing. He asked about my work, and unlike everyone else in my family, he actually listened to the answers. He told me stories about the steel mill, about my grandmother, about the Cleveland of his youth. He laughed at my jokes and told a few of his own. When I left that evening, he grabbed my hand and held it for a moment. "You come back any time, Declan," he said. "This old man gets lonely sometimes." So I came back. The next Sunday, and the Sunday after that, and the Sunday after that. For 12 years, without fail, I visited Grandpa Chester every single week. I brought my girlfriend Naomi to meet him after we had been dating for 6 months. I brought her again when she became my fiancée. I brought our son Theo to meet his great-grandfather when he was 3 weeks old. Those Sunday visits became the anchor of my life. No matter what else was happening, no matter how stressed I was about work or money or family drama, I knew that Sunday afternoon would be peaceful. I knew Grandpa Chester would be sitting on his porch with a pitcher of lemonade, ready to listen, ready to share, ready to remind me that the simple things in life were the things that mattered most. We had rituals, Grandpa and I would bring donuts from the bakery on 5th Street, the same bakery that had been there since he was a young man courting my grandmother. He would make lemonade from scratch, the recipe passed down from his mother, with just the right balance of sweet and sour. We would sit on the porch if the weather was nice, in the kitchen if it was not, and we would talk for hours. He told me stories I had never heard anywhere else, about growing up during the Depression when having a full belly was a luxury, about meeting my grandmother at that church picnic, how she was wearing a yellow dress and laughing at something her friend said, and how he knew in that moment that he would marry her or die trying, about working at the steel mill, the heat and the noise and the danger, and how he came home every day grateful to be alive. "You learn something, working in a place like that," he told me once. "You learn that every day is a gift. You learn that the things people chase, the money, the status, the fancy houses, none of it matters when a beam falls wrong or a furnace explodes. What matters is who waits for you at home. What matters is who you are when no one is watching." He asked about my life, too, not the polite questions my parents asked, the ones that were really about whether I was meeting their expectations. Real questions about what I was working on, what problems I was solving, what made me happy, what kept me up at night. "You are good at what you do," he said once, after I described a particularly complicated job. "You solve problems. You make things work. That is a gift, Declan. Not everyone can do that. It is just electrical work, Grandpa. It is not exactly saving lives." "No. What happens when the power goes out in a hospital? What happens when the lights fail in a home where a child is afraid of the dark? What happens when a family's heat stops working in January?" He shook his head. "You keep the world running, Declan. Do not ever let anyone tell you that does not matter." I thought about that conversation often, especially when my father made comments about my career, about how I could have done something more impressive, more prestigious, more worthy of the Mercer name. Grandpa Chester never made me feel like I was not enough. He made me feel like I was exactly who I was supposed to be. "Why do you keep going there?" my father asked me once, at a family dinner where Grandpa Chester had not been invited. "What do you even talk about?" "Life," I said. "Work. Theo. Whatever is on our minds." What could he possibly have to say about life? He worked in a factory for 40 years. He has never been anywhere, never done anything, never accomplished anything worth talking about. That is not true. Name one thing he accomplished, one thing that matters. I could not answer him. Not the way he wanted. I could not point to degrees or promotions or houses or cars. All I could point to was a life lived simply, honestly, with grace and humor and love. And I knew my father would not understand that. So I stopped trying to explain. I just kept visiting. Every Sunday, rain or shine, for 12 years. My grandmother Rose died when I was 25. Grandpa Chester was devastated. They had been married for 56 years, and he told me once that he had never spent a single night away from her in all that time.
She was my whole world, he said, sitting on the porch the Sunday after her funeral. The rest of the family had gone home hours ago. I was the only one who stayed. I do not know how to live without her, Declan. You will figure it out, Grandpa. One day at a time. That is what she used to say. He wiped his eyes with a handkerchief that had seen better days. One day at a time. She was always the strong one. I held his hand while he cried. I was 25 years old, and I had never seen my grandfather cry before. It broke something in me and healed something else at the same time. After Rose died, my visits became even more important. Grandpa Chester was alone now, rattling around in that tiny house, with no one to talk to except me. My father visited once, maybe twice, in the 9 years between Rose's death and Chester's death. Preston visited never. Bridget visited once, complained about the smell, and never came back. But I came every Sunday. And over those 9 years, I learned more about my grandfather than I had ever known before. I learned that he and Rose had won a lawsuit against the steel mill in 1971, after he was injured in an accident that nearly cost him his leg. They were awarded $15,000, a fortune at the time, and everyone expected them to spend it. Buy a bigger house, buy a new car, take a vacation. They did not spend it. They invested it. Everyone thought we were crazy, Grandpa Chester told me once, about 3 years before he died, putting that money in the bank instead of enjoying it. But Rose and I talked about it for a long time. We decided we would rather have security than stuff. We would rather know that money was there, growing, waiting, than have a nice car that would rust in 10 years. So you just left it there? For all these years. We added to it when we could. A little here, a little there. Rose was good with money. She had a head for numbers. She figured out how to make it grow. How much is in there now, Grandpa? He smiled, that mysterious smile he had whenever he was keeping a secret. Enough. More than enough. I did not ask again. It was not my business. And honestly, I assumed he meant enough to pay for his funeral, maybe leave a little something to his grandchildren. I never imagined the truth. The wedding was the moment everything changed. Naomi and I got married on a Saturday afternoon in June, 5 years ago now. It was a small wedding, just family and close friends, at a venue that we could barely afford, but that Naomi had fallen in love with the moment she saw it. An old barn converted into an event space, with string lights and wildflowers and a view of the countryside that made you forget you were only 20 minutes from downtown Cleveland. I remember being nervous, not about marrying Naomi, I was certain about that, but about having my whole family in one place. About Grandpa Chester being there, surrounded by people who looked down on him. About the inevitable comments, the sidelong glances, the barely concealed disdain. My mother had tried to convince me not to invite him. He will be out of place, she said, during one of our planning meetings. He does not have anything appropriate to wear. He will embarrass himself and you. He is my grandfather. He is coming. At least make him sit in the back, away from Gordon's colleagues. He is sitting in the front row, Mom, right where he belongs. Declan, be reasonable. Your father has important clients coming. Do you want them to see? See what? An old man who loves his grandson? An old man who has never missed a Sunday visit in 12 years? An old man who actually cares about me instead of what I can do for his career. She did not speak to me for 2 weeks after that conversation. But on the wedding day, she put on her best fake smile and pretended everything was fine. That was my mother's specialty. Pretending everything was fine while judging everyone silently. Grandpa Chester arrived in his old truck, the 1987 Ford that he had been driving since before I was born. The engine rattled as he pulled into the parking lot, drawing disapproving looks from my father's colleagues and their luxury sedans. But Grandpa did not seem to notice or care. He stepped out of the truck with a smile on his face and a gift bag in his hand. He was wearing a suit I had never seen before. Navy blue, a little outdated in cut, but clean and pressed and clearly well cared for. Later, Naomi told me she had seen a photo of him wearing that same suit at my parents' wedding 40 years earlier. He had kept it all those years, waiting for an occasion important enough to wear it again. When I saw him walking toward the venue, I almost cried. "You look beautiful," he told Naomi when he met her at the reception line. He had insisted on waiting in line like everyone else, refusing my attempt to bring him in through a side door. "My grandson is a lucky man. I think I am the lucky one," Naomi said. "He talks about you all the time. All good things, I hope. The best things. He says you are the wisest person he knows." Grandpa Chester's eyes glistened. He reached out and took her hands in his. "You take care of him, okay? He is special, this one. Not like the others. I know. That is why I am marrying him." He hugged her then, this woman he had only met a handful of times, and I saw tears running down his weathered cheeks. I had to look away or I would have started crying too. The reception was awkward, as I knew it would be. My father's colleagues clustered in one corner, talking about business and golf and the market. My mother's friends clustered in another corner, talking about renovations and vacations and whatever else they talked about. Preston and Bridget circulated the room, networking, schmoozing, treating my wedding like a business opportunity. Grandpa Chester sat at the family table, mostly alone, watching everything with those calm, observant eyes. I tried to spend time with him, but there were so many people demanding my attention, so many hands to shake and pictures to take.
It was near the end of the reception, when things were winding down, that he found me. "Declan," he said, pulling me aside, "I have something for you." He reached into the inside pocket of his suit jacket and withdrew a small, worn book, a passbook, the kind banks used to give customers before everything went digital. "What is this?" "Your wedding present." He pressed it into my hands. "For your future. For Naomi. For the children you are going to have." I looked at the passbook. First Cleveland Savings and Loan, on the cover. The pages inside were yellowed and filled with entries dating back to 1971. "Grandpa, I do not understand." "You will. Take it to the bank." "Not now. When you are ready. When you need it." He squeezed my hands. "Do not tell anyone about this. Not your father. Not your mother. Nobody. Just keep it safe until the time is right. Grandpa." But before I could say anything else, my father appeared at my elbow. "What is that?" Gordon asked, reaching for the passbook. "What did he give you?" "It is nothing, Dad. Just a card." But my father was faster than me. He grabbed the passbook out of my hands and opened it. First Cleveland Savings and Loan. He started to laugh. "Chester, this bank does not exist anymore. It closed 30 years ago." "It was acquired," Grandpa Chester said quietly. "The account is still active." "Active? With what? The $50 you deposited in 1971. Gordon waved the passbook in the air. "This is worthless, Chester. This is literally worthless. The account was probably closed decades ago. Even if it still exists, there is nothing in it." "Give it back," I said. "I am doing you a favor, son. Saving you the embarrassment of walking into a bank with this garbage." He turned to my mother, who had appeared beside him. "Lorraine, look at this. The old man is giving Declan a passbook from a bank that does not exist." My mother shook her head. "Chester, honestly, could you not have just given him a check like a normal person?" "There is nothing normal about being broke," Preston said, joining the conversation because he could never resist an opportunity to mock someone. "Face it, Grandpa, you have nothing to give. You have never had anything. Why pretend otherwise? Give it back. I said again, my voice harder this time. My father looked at me with surprise. Then he shrugged and tossed the passbook at me. I caught it against my chest. Fine. Keep your worthless souvenir. But do not say I did not warn you when you walk into whatever bank absorbed First Cleveland and they laugh you out of the building. I will keep that in mind. Grandpa Chester caught my eye. He winked. And in that wink, I saw something I did not understand at the time. Confidence. Certainty. The look of a man who knew exactly what he was doing. Take care of that passbook, he said, loud enough for everyone to hear. It is more valuable than any of them know. My father snorted. The senility is getting worse. Somebody should really look into a home for him. Grandpa Chester just smiled. I kept the passbook. I put it in my nightstand drawer under my watch and my spare keys, and I left it there. I told myself I would go to the bank someday, just to see, just to know. But the weeks turned into months, and the months turned into years, and doubt crept in the way it always does. What if my father was right? What if the account was closed? What if there really was nothing, and going to the bank would just confirm what everyone already believed? That Grandpa Chester was a sweet old man who had nothing to give. I could not bear to have that confirmed. So I left the passbook in the drawer and pretended it did not exist. Grandpa Chester died on a Tuesday morning in February. He went peacefully, in his sleep, in the same bed where he had slept next to my grandmother for 56 years. The neighbor found him when she came to check on him, and he did not answer the door. I was the one who identified the body. I was the one who called the funeral home. I was the one who sat in that tiny house, surrounded by 50 years of a simple life, and cried for the last good man in my family. The funeral was small. A few neighbors, a few old friends from the mill, people who actually knew Chester and cared about him. My father came, but he complained about the cheap casket. My mother came, but she left early for a hair appointment. Preston came, but he spent most of the service on his phone. Bridget came, but she brought her own hand sanitizer and refused to sit in the pews. I gave the eulogy because no one else would. My grandfather Chester was not a rich man, I said, standing at the podium, looking out at the sparse congregation. He did not have a big house or a fancy car. He did not travel the world or build a business empire. By all the measures that society uses to judge success, he had nothing. But by the measures that actually matter, he had everything. He had a wife who loved him for 56 years. He had a home that was always warm and welcoming. He had a laugh that could fill a room. He had patience that could calm any storm. He had wisdom that he shared freely with anyone who asked. He taught me that the simple things are the things that matter. A cold glass of lemonade on a hot day. A Sunday afternoon with nothing to do but talk. A handshake that means something. A promise that you keep. I will miss him every day for the rest of my life. And I will try every day to be the kind of man he was. Not rich in money. Rich in the things that count. My father checked his watch during my eulogy. My mother whispered something to Bridget. Preston was not even pretending to pay attention, but Naomi was crying. And Theo, for years old and not really understanding what was happening, held my hand when I sat back down and said, "That was good, Daddy." That was enough. The reading of the will happened 2 days later at a lawyer's office in Cleveland. My father was there, of course, ready to receive whatever meager inheritance Chester had left behind. Preston and Bridget were there too, more out of obligation than expectation. I was there because I had to be. The lawyer, an old man named Howard who had known Chester for decades, read the will in a quiet, respectful voice. To my son Gordon, I leave my house at 4412 Elmwood Drive to be sold or kept as he sees fit. My father nodded, satisfied. The house was worth maybe $95,000. Not much, but something. To my grandchildren Preston and Bridget, I leave my savings account at Ohio National Bank to be divided equally between them. The The current balance is approximately $28,000. Preston and Bridget exchanged disappointed looks. $14,000 each was not worth the trip. To my grandson Declan, I leave my 1987 Ford pickup truck and my toolbox. My father laughed out loud. A 37-year-old truck and a rusty toolbox. That sounds about right. The truck and the toolbox are already in Declan's possession, Howard continued, ignoring my father. Chester gave them to him last year. So Declan gets nothing? Bridget asked, barely hiding her smile. The will has been fully executed. The estate is closed. My father stood up, brushing off his pants like the whole experience had somehow dirted him. Well, that was a waste of time. At least we got the house. You already have the passbook, Preston said to me, smirking. Enjoy your 50 cents, little brother. They left. All of them. My father, my mother, Preston, Bridget. They walked out of that lawyer's office, without a backward glance, already discussing how to sell Grandpa Chester's house. I stayed behind. Howard was watching me with an expression I could not read. Mr. Mercer, he said, after the others were gone, your grandfather was a remarkable man. I know. Do you really know? I did not understand what he meant. Not then. But I would. The next morning, I went to the bank. I do not know why that morning. Maybe it was the way Preston had smirked at me. Maybe it was the way my father had laughed. Maybe it was just time, finally, after 5 years of doubt. Maybe it was the feeling that if I did not go now, I never would, and I would spend the rest of my life wondering. I woke up at 5, the way I always do before a job site. But instead of putting on my work clothes and heading out, I sat on the edge of the bed and looked at the passbook. I had taken it out of the nightstand drawer the night before, the first time I had really looked at it in months. The cover was soft with age, the corners rounded from decades of handling. The pages inside were yellowed, the ink faded but still legible. March 15th, 1971. $8,000. My grandfather's handwriting, careful and neat. Naomi woke up and found me sitting there. Declan, what are you doing? I am going to the bank. What? The passbook. Grandpa's passbook. I am going to find out if there is anything in it. She sat up, rubbed her eyes. Now. It is 5 in the morning. I know. I have to know. I have been wondering for 5 years, and I need to know. She looked at me for a long moment. Then she nodded. Okay. Do you want me to come with you? No. This is something I need to do alone. I put on my work clothes because I had a job site to get to afterward, and I drove to the National Ohio Bank branch downtown. It was the largest branch in the city, the one most likely to have records going back decades. I got there before it opened and sat in my truck in the parking lot, watching the employees arrive, watching the lights come on inside. At 9 o'clock exactly, I walked through the doors. The branch was modern, all glass and chrome and digital screens. Nothing like the old savings and loans I remembered from my childhood. I felt out of place immediately. A man in work boots and a flannel shirt, holding a yellowed passbook from a bank that had not existed for decades. I waited in line like everyone else. I watched the tellers help customers with normal requests, deposits, withdrawals, account inquiries, normal banking business for normal people on a normal morning. When it was my turn, I stepped up to the counter. The teller was young, maybe 25, with a professional smile and a name tag that said Jennifer. How can I help you today, sir? I placed the passbook on the counter. I am not sure if this account still exists, I said. It is from First Cleveland Savings and Loan. My grandfather gave it to me. Jennifer picked up the passbook and looked at it like I had handed her an artifact from a museum. She turned it over, opened it, studied the entries inside. First Cleveland, she said. I have never heard of that bank. It was acquired a long time ago, maybe several times. I do not know if the account is still active or if it was closed. I just want to find out. Let me see what I can find in the system. She typed something into her computer. Then she typed something else. Then she frowned and typed again. That is when her hands stopped moving. That is when her face went pale. That is when she looked at her screen, then at me, then back at the screen, like she was seeing something that could not possibly be real. "Sir," she said, her voice barely above a whisper, "I need to get my manager. Is something wrong?" "No, sir. Nothing is wrong. I need to get my manager. Please wait here." She practically ran to the back of the bank. And that is when my life changed. The drive home from the bank is still a blur. I remember pulling into the driveway. I remember sitting in the truck for a long time, staring at the passbook, trying to process what I had learned. $3.4 million. My grandfather, the man everyone called poor, the man everyone pitied, the man everyone dismissed, had been a millionaire, and he had left it all to me, not to my father, who had been embarrassed by him, not to Preston, who had mocked him, not to Bridget, who had complained about the smell of his house. To me, the one who visited, the one who listened, the one who saw him as a person instead of a disappointment. Naomi found me in the truck an hour later. She had been watching from the kitchen window, worried, not understanding why I had not come inside. "Declan, what is wrong? What happened at the bank?" I handed her the paperwork, the printout showing the account balance, the beneficiary designation with my name on it, the investment portfolio breakdown showing 52 years of careful, patient growth. She read it twice. Then she sat down on the driveway, right on the concrete, and started to cry. "Is this real?" she kept asking. "Is this real? Is this actually real?" "It is real. It is all real. $3 million. Your grandfather had $3 million. 3.4, and he left it all to us." Naomi looked at me with tears streaming down her face. Why? Why us? I knew the answer. I had known it for 12 years every Sunday, sitting on that porch with lemonade and conversation. "Because I showed up," I said. "Because I visited. Because I saw him." The confrontation with my family happened a week later. I did not plan it. I did not want it. But my father found out about the money, the way fathers always find out about these things, and he demanded a meeting at his house. When I arrived, they were all there. My father, pacing by the fireplace. My mother, sitting on the couch with her arms crossed. Preston and Bridget, flanking her like bodyguards. $3.4 million, my father said, before I even sat down. My father had $3.4 million hidden in a bank account, and he left it all to you. He left you the house. He left Preston and Bridget the savings account. The house is worth $95,000. The savings account had $28,000, and you got $3 million. My father's face was red, the way it got when he was furious. In what world is that fair? In the world where I visited him, where I listened to him, where I treated him like a human being instead of an embarrassment. I am his son. Then why did you visit him twice in 9 years? Why did you laugh at his passbook? Why did you call him senile and suggest putting him in a home? I did not know he had money. Exactly. I let that word hang in the air. You did not know he had money. And when you thought he had nothing, you wanted nothing to do with him. Now you find out he was rich, and suddenly you are his devoted son. "This is fraud," Preston said, stepping forward. Grandpa was clearly not mentally competent. No sane person hides $3 million and lives like a pauper. We can contest the beneficiary designation, claim undue influence, claim diminished capacity. You can try, but the bank has records going back 52 years. Monthly deposits, investment decisions, all made in person, all documented. Grandpa was sharper than any of you ever knew. He just let you believe what you wanted to believe. "This is not right," my mother said, her voice brittle. "Family money should go to family. All of it, not just to one person. Family money should go to family who acts like family. Family who shows up. Family who cares." I looked at each of them in turn. When was the last time any of you visited him? When was the last time you called him just to talk, not because you needed something? When was the last time you treated him like he mattered? Silence. That is what I thought. I walked to the door, then stopped and turned around. Grandpa Chester lived simply because he wanted to, not because he had to. He could have bought a mansion, could have traveled the world, could have done anything he wanted, but he chose lemonade on the porch. He chose Sunday visits. He chose the things that actually made him happy. "That is insane," Bridget said. "No, that is wisdom. And he tried to teach it to all of you, but you were too busy looking down on him to learn anything." I walked out. I did not look back. It has been 6 months since I learned the truth. The money is invested now, most of it, growing the same way Grandpa Chester grew it. Slowly, patiently, with a long-term view that values security over flash. I work with a financial advisor, someone who understood immediately what I wanted to do with this inheritance. Someone who did not try to talk me into yachts or vacation homes or any of the things people apparently buy when they come into money. I want to be able to give my son what my grandfather gave me. I told him at our first meeting. Not the money, the security, the knowledge that he will be okay, no matter what happens. He nodded like he understood. Maybe he did. Maybe he had seen enough newly wealthy people to know that the ones who stay grounded are the ones who remember where they came from. We set up a trust for Theo, a college fund that will cover any school he wants to attend, any career he wants to pursue, a safety net that will catch him if he ever falls, the way my grandfather's money caught me when I did not even know I was falling. We paid off our house, the modest 3-bedroom in the neighborhood where Naomi grew up, the house we had stretched to afford, the house where we brought Theo home from the hospital. I thought about buying something bigger, something fancier, something that would make my father's house look small by comparison. But Naomi talked me out of it. "We love this house," she said. "Our neighbors are our friends. Theo's school is right down the street. Why would we leave just because we can afford to?" She was right. She is usually right about these things. So we stayed. We just do not have a mortgage anymore, which means we do not have to worry anymore, which is worth more than any mansion could ever be. We paid off our cars. We put money aside for Naomi to go back to school if she wants, to pursue the nursing degree she gave up when Theo was born because we could not afford childcare and tuition at the same time. She has not decided yet if she wants to go back, but knowing she can, knowing the option exists, has changed something in her. She walks taller now. She smiles more. We also gave some away to the food bank where Grandpa Chester used to volunteer on Thanksgiving, to the church where he and Grandma Rose got married, to the scholarship fund at the local high school for kids who want to go to trade school but cannot afford it. "Your grandfather would have liked that," Naomi said when I told her about the scholarship, helping kids learn to work with their hands. I hope so. I hope he knows. But I still work. I still get up every morning and put on my work clothes and go to job sites and run electrical wire through walls. I still come home tired and dirty and satisfied, with that particular exhaustion that only comes from doing something real with your hands. "You could retire," Naomi says sometimes, watching me pull off my boots at the end of a long day. "You do not have to work anymore." I know, but I want to. Why? Because I like it. Because it matters. Because Grandpa Chester worked his whole life, even when he did not have to, and I think I finally understand why. She understands. She knows me well enough to understand. I do not need a mansion or a fancy car. I do not need to prove anything to anyone. What I need is the same thing Grandpa Chester needed. The simple satisfaction of a day's work, the warmth of a family that loves me, the peace of knowing that the things that matter are taken care of. My father called once, about 2 months after I went to the bank. It was the first time he had called me in years. Usually, communication went through my mother, filtered and sanitized, keeping up appearances. "Declan," he said, his voice stiff and awkward, "I have been thinking about the situation, about your grandfather's estate." "What about it?" "I think we got off on the wrong foot. I think there were misunderstandings. I think if we sat down together, we could work something out. Something that would be fair to everyone." "Fair to everyone," meaning you get a share of the money. "It is family money, Declan. It should stay in the family." "It is staying in the family. My wife and my son." "That is not what I mean, and you know it." "I know exactly what you mean, Dad. You mean you want a piece of something you did nothing to earn. You want to benefit from a man you spent 30 years ignoring. You want to be rewarded for treating your own father like he was beneath you." "I did not treat him like." "You visited him twice in 9 years. You laughed at his passbook. You called him senile. You told Preston and Bridget that whatever he left would be worthless because he had never accomplished anything worth talking about." Silence on the line. "The answer is no, Dad. Not now. Not ever. The money stays where Grandpa Chester wanted it to stay, with the grandson who showed up." I hung up. He has not called since. I visit Grandpa Chester's grave every Sunday. I bring lemonade, the same brand he always made, and I sit on the grass beside his headstone and I talk to him. Sometimes Naomi comes with me. Sometimes Theo comes too, though he does not fully understand yet why we go or who we are visiting. "This is your great-grandpa," I tell him, pointing at the headstone. "He loved you very much. He used to hold you when you were a baby and sing old songs that his mother taught him." "Was he nice?" Theo asks. "He was the nicest person I ever knew." "Nicer than you?" "Much nicer than me. I am still learning how to be like him." Theo thinks about this for a moment, in that serious way 4-year-olds have when they are trying to understand something important. Then he walks up to the headstone and pats it gently, the way he pats our dog when he wants to show affection. "Hi, great-grandpa," he says. "I hope you have good lemonade in heaven." I have to turn away, so he does not see me cry. Theo is getting big, I tell Grandpa Chester during my visits. He started kindergarten this year. He is already learning to read. He loves dinosaurs and trucks and helping me in the garage. You would be so proud of him. Naomi says hello. She misses you. She still talks about how kind you were to her at the wedding, how you made her feel like part of the family when my actual family made her feel like an outsider. I saw Dad last week, at a family thing. He would not look at me. Neither would Preston or Bridget. Mom said maybe we could work something out with the money. I said no. I hope you are not disappointed that I did not share with them. I hope you understand why. I hope you knew, Grandpa. I hope you knew, at the end, how much you meant to me. I hope you knew that the money was not why I visited. I hope you knew that I would have come every Sunday, even if there was nothing in that passbook except 50 cents and a dream. The wind moves through the trees. A bird sings somewhere nearby. And I like to think he can hear me. I like to think he knows. There was a letter I should mention. Not in the passbook, but at the bank. A sealed envelope, held in a safe deposit box, to be delivered to me when I claimed the account. Dear Declan, it read, if you are reading this, you finally went to the bank. I am glad. I was starting to worry you never would. I know what they said about the passbook. I know your father laughed. I know they all called me senile, called me broke, called me a fool. I heard every word. But I also know you kept the passbook. You did not throw it away. You did not let them convince you it was worthless. You trusted me, even when everyone else told you not to. That is why the money is yours. Let me tell you the story. In 1971, your grandmother and I won a lawsuit against the steel mill. They paid us $15,000 for my injury, for the months I could not work, for the pain and suffering I endured. Everyone expected us to spend it. Everyone expected us to finally live a little, after years of scraping by. But Rose had a different idea. She said, "What if we did not spend it? What if we saved it instead? What if we lived like we had never received it, and let it grow year after year, until it became something worth having?" So that is what we did. We put $8,000 in the bank, high-yield savings, and we added to it every month. $200, rain or shine, for 52 years. Rose managed it at first. Then I learned when she got sick. We watched it grow from thousands to tens of thousands to hundreds of thousands to millions. And we never touched it. Not once. Why? Because we did not need it. We had each other. We had our little house, our old truck, our simple pleasures. What would money have given us that we did not already have? But we knew you might need it someday. You and Naomi and the children you would have. We watched you grow up, watched you become the only member of the family who understood what really mattered. And we decided, Rose and I, that when we were gone, it would all go to you. Your father will be angry. He will say it is not fair. But fair has nothing to do with it. Love has everything to do with it. And you were the only one who loved me, Declan. The only one who saw me as more than a poor old man waiting to die. Use the money wisely. Live simply the way your grandmother and I lived. Give your children security, not stuff. And remember always that the richest person in the room is not the one with the most money. It is the one who knows what matters. I love you, grandson. I am proud of you, and I will be watching from wherever I end up to see the man you become. Your grandfather, Chester. P.S. The truck is worth keeping. I put a lot of miles on her, but she has a lot of miles left. Take care of her, and she will take care of you. I still drive that truck. The 1987 Ford that my grandfather gave me before he died. It is old and loud and gets terrible gas mileage. I could buy a new one. I could buy 10 new ones. But every time I turn the key and hear that engine rumble to life, I hear my grandfather's voice. I feel his hand on my shoulder. I remember who I am and where I came from. And that is worth more than any amount of money in any bank account in the world. Thank you for walking this journey with me. Before you go, I have left 2 more stories here on your screen, both from men who discovered that family is not always who you are born to. It is who stands by you when the truth comes out. Click on whichever one calls to you. And if you want to join our community of people who understand what it is like to be the outsider looking in, that notification bell is your invitation. Until tomorrow, remember, your story matters, even if they tried to erase it.